All right, good evening and welcome to our August program of ACAP Cape Fear. Tonight we're going to be learning about the driving fitness program and also gain some insights for how to help a loved one transition from driver to passenger. My name is Dorothy Griffin. I'm with Griswold Home Care and I have the pleasure of working with the senior care professionals in the ACAP Cape Fear leadership team, and we work together to put on these monthly programs for our community. If you're not familiar with ACAP, it is a nonprofit with chapters in North Carolina, Georgia, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And the mission is to provide information and resources, support, and community through the monthly programs, podcasts, and other resources. So just to give you an idea of what to expect, we have two presenters that will be sharing the presentation. That will be the main bulk of our time. And they're very open to questions throughout their presentation, and then they'll also just make sure if you have any questions at the end, feel free to ask those. So this is as much as we can be interactive, the more information that you'll get. And we are live streaming, so if you're in the live stream audience and you have questions, please feel free to type those in, and we'll be sure to ask our speakers about that as well. And we do try to wrap things up by 7:30 at the latest, just to give you an idea of the timing. If you are not familiar with the building, the restrooms, if you go out the door and then down the hallway, they're on your right if you need those. And there's some snacks in the back you can help yourself to as well. So I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers tonight. It's Noah Alper and Ian Lowell. Noah holds a master's degree in rehabilitation sciences, occupational therapy, and she graduated at the Medical University of South Carolina, and her bachelor's degree is in psychology from Washington University in St. Louis. She is a licensed occupational therapist since 2005, and her experience is in inpatient rehabilitation and then home health therapy for a total of 13 years. And then in 2019, she transitioned to bring her wealth of knowledge to a new domain as the co-owner of Assistance for Life Care Management Services along our ACAP leadership team member, Nikki Zeldin. In addition to providing personalized care management, they also offer occupational therapy driving evaluations, and that's really our tie tonight in what she's going to share. She's passionate about advocating for her client needs and guiding them to live as independently and safely as possible. And our second speaker, you may have noticed the program said it's Joe Fitzgerald. He's actually the owner of Southeastern Driver Training Center, and Ian is one of their instructors, and he's the one that's going to join us tonight. He does the on-road evaluation, so he's very brave and courageous to drive with some people that may not need to have their licenses. He's been a state certified driving instructor for the past 8 years, and he served in law enforcement for the 12 years prior to that. So join me in giving Ian and Noah a warm welcome.
All right, thank you for having us.
So we'll go ahead and get started here in just a second with our presentation. But some of the slides, they're a little heavy with the bullet points. So please, if you all have any questions, maybe about what it means or how it correlates to maybe the aging driver in your life, just let us know and stop us, kind of, free talk, if you will. But just if you have a question, please let us know. All right. But the real reason why we're here is should I or my loved one be driving, right? That's the whole point of us being here tonight. So let's get right into it.
So just in general with our older adults, drivers tend to modify their driving habits, driving less at night as we get older. We make our own modifications, whether we have medical things going on or not. So for a lot of people, that's already happening. But we see that as your abilities diminish or your capacity to make good decision making, we would recommend, that's kind of some of the starting points on when you should stop driving. Also, the complexity of driving can be overwhelming. Overestimating their abilities to be a good driver is also very common. They lose the ability to be aware of their own thinking. That's more common, obviously, if dementia is the diagnosis. Making excuses for other high-risk drivers. That's the reason why there's a problem. We hear things like, well, just because I got lost doesn't mean I can't drive. Or I make sure I look where I'm going, or I've driven many, many years and I haven't had any accidents yet. So it's not me, it's them kind of situation. Typical things that we hear from our aging population.
This is the fun stuff. Now I got the clicker. Watch out. Some of the things we got to look out for when we're driving. Noah already referenced a decrease in the confidence while driving. They appear nervous, maybe a little more jittery when they're driving. Difficulty turning to see when backing up. I would be remiss if I didn't say that's one of the reasons why my mother got a new car last year. She blamed it on her inability to turn all the way back and see clearly. A lot of the newer cars have backup cameras, backup sensors, things of that nature, but we'll see a lot of the accidents or collisions happen while backing up because we're not fully able to turn around and see. Riding the brake, if you guys don't know what that is, it's riding down with 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brake. A lot of times this happens in the aging process, partly because our reaction time slowed down. The aging driver wants to keep 1 foot over the gas and 1 on the brake. In the event that something happens, there's less time they need to react, which causes a huge area of concern. That's what also leads to a lot of crashes. You heard the term, the driver mistook the gas for the brake or the brake for the gas. And then they drove through the convenience store. They drove into the restaurant. We see it all the time in the news. Chances are 9 out of 10 times it's because they were riding the brake, having 1 foot over the gas and 1 foot over the brake at the same time. They become easily distracted while driving. Someone starts honking the horn at them frequently. Incorrect signaling is a big one that we see. You tell them they're going to take a right where they're supposed to take a right, and they end up putting on their left-hand turn signal. Difficulty parking. Ever pull into a parking lot and see somebody appear to take about 5 minutes to get that parking job right? It happens. It does, and I apologize. I'm not making light of it. Hitting curbs. This is a big one. I met with a friend of mine today. He's from the Hamlet area, and he's been going up to see his mother. She's in her early 90s. Well, he got up there 2 weeks ago, and he pulls up, and he sees she has a white car. He notices there's blue paint on the side of his mom's car. And he says, "Mom, what happened to the car?" "What do you mean? Nothing happened." And he keeps looking at this paint. It's a small town where they live in, and he tries to figure out, what is this paint? Where is it coming from? And how did it get on your car? "Well, I don't know. I didn't do it." So then it dawns on him, the only place that his mother goes, and she goes to the same 3 places every week: church, Burger King, the grocery store, and the post office. It dawns on him. The blue paint on the giant post office box where you go put your mail in. So he drove up to the post office that afternoon, and lo and behold, the side of the mailbox is all dented and smashed in there. So, he took care of it. Made perfect sense, right? So hitting things, hitting curbs. But if you start noticing more dents, dings, deficiencies with the car that weren't there the last time you saw it, those are very good indicators that they're having some oopsie moments, right? Failure to notice important activity on the side of the road. In this town, it's more than likely construction or a traffic crash. Let's see, what else? Failure to notice traffic signs. I think that's a big problem. Trouble navigating turns, and then driving at inappropriate speeds. Going down College Road, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and somebody's in the fast lane doing 25 miles an hour. And you look over and it appears it might be an elderly person holding on, just barely driving, not paying any attention, and no real understanding of what's going on around them. These are some big red flags that you see. So if you or someone you know is a passenger in a car with an aging driver and you see these things, it doesn't have to be all of them, doesn't have to be one of them, but enough to raise some concern, it's probably a good idea to start thinking about the next step, or even at least having the conversation with them. Oh yeah, this one's me too. If you need to use a co-pilot, meaning you always drive with someone in the car, that person in the car is telling you where to go. Maybe it's a husband and wife duo. Husband doesn't feel comfortable driving without the wife. The wife isn't a big driver, so she lets the husband drive everywhere, but they need to go together. You're kind of relying on someone else to help you through those situations, and that's not what we want. Near misses, delayed response to unexpected situations. We talked about the reaction time, moving into the wrong lane, or just driving in the wrong lane in general. I do these evaluations that come through from the Assistance for Life group, and every single one of those, I've seen it. It happens. And a lot of times they're completely unaware of what they're doing. They get confused at exits. They get tickets, moving violations, or warning. Another big one, getting lost in familiar places. If they come home and they even tell you, oh, sorry, I got turned around. Maybe, they were doing road work. And then all of a sudden you have to take a different route home. That's a big cause for concern. Car crashes, obviously we mentioned those. Failure to stop at stop signs or red lights. Again, the big ones, we put some asterisks next to them. Confusing the gas and the brake pedal. Those are like automatic. They need to stop driving. Those can be potentially life-threatening and life-ending consequences involved with those. And then stopping in traffic for no apparent reason.
Thank you. Good job. And actually, just to add to this too, a lot of the information that we have tonight is in some booklets that we have in the back. The Hartford puts out some great booklets that helps with getting the conversation started. So we have those in the back if you want. But that does lead into what's next. So advice from other caregivers of how to really start this conversation, how to handle what's going on. So a few comments we hear. So there's no easy answer. There's no right way. Don't beat yourself up about how to approach this with your family member. Begin discussions and planning early. Involve the older driver in the discussion.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned. Base the decisions on driving behavior observed over a period of time. So we're all allowed that one mistake. So just because, minus the 2 critical errors, just because, there's the one ding, it's just take note, but really you need to be paying attention if it's happening over time. Getting support when making and implementing the decisions about driving. So you're not alone. We'll go through it later, other people that can help support you with that conversation. And at the end of the day, it's about finding balance between maintaining independence, but ensuring safety. So I hear it a lot as an occupational therapist. If I can't drive, I can't go to where I want to go, do what I want to do. You're taking away my independence. And we respect that wholeheartedly. But when you start sacrificing safety of yourself and others, then that's when it gets different. So who can support you? So a lot of times you're going to the doctor, you're asking them, hey, should this person be driving? Some doctors are really helpful with this and some kind of push it back on you. So it's one area. Occupational therapists, we do the driving evaluations. Also just generalist occupational therapists, if you're an outpatient or whatnot, they're familiar with skills that are needed for driving, so they can be involved in that. Also, as we're aging and we're working with financial planners, lawyers, maybe care managers, they're also familiar and have worked with a lot of people that get to this stage, and they can kind of help bring that conversation up as well. And local support groups, talking to each other about how we can help. So who do the older adults prefer to talk to about their driving? And you want to choose that carefully because you don't want to attack a person and them just shut down because the conversation came up. So you kind of feel who's the right person. Is it the spouse? Is the doctor? An adult, children, one, maybe not both. Some is different. Close friends or other professionals. So it's just really, that's very individualized, but thinking that through who the right person would be to have that conversation is helpful. So what might motivate older adults to stop driving? This is a good one for you.
It's a great one for me. It's always great for me. I'm a huge believer in the safety of everyone, right? I like looking at the big picture. And that's one of the things that I myself like to stress to the clients that come through and that, we do these evaluations with. It's the big picture. It's not just you. It's not just your loved ones. It's me. It's my loved ones. It's her loved ones. It's any other roadway user who we're sharing the roads with. We've had folks that come in that just don't care. They just don't want to be there. It was sprung on them. It was something that we're taking their freedom away from them. We've had some who have had a wonderful relationship, wonderful talk with their spouse, and they've almost planned for it. And the one key factor, with everyone that's come in with a successful mindset is that safety. No one wants to harm another individual. No one really in their right mind wants to harm themselves. And I think for me personally, that's probably the most important one. And that's what we talk about with them. You know, there's a potential you could harm yourself or harm someone else if you get behind the wheel. That's what I like to sort of focus on. Conditions, obviously, changing traffic, volume, speeds, road patterns, aggressive drivers, doctor's recommendations. Some of these clients are going to listen to their doctors way more so than they're going to listen to their spouse or their child. Noah said it best, you kind of have to pick the right person to have that conversation with, because it just may be received better coming from a doctor. Let's see. Change in health or physical status, a new medication, new diagnosis, and then a change in mobility. You know, these are just various ways you can use to talk to them about it. And then shared stories, information about other older adults who have stopped driving, or I don't know, the safety thing I just keep going back to. I think it's so imperative. Just to me as a person, that touches me more so, you know, if I knew I was going to be putting another human being at risk. So that's what I like to go for.
So where is the best place to have the conversation? Typically, it's not in the moment in the car when something is frightening you. If at all possible, you want to avoid the overreacting when it happens, but after the fact, one-on-one, say, hey, this is what we saw. Let's think this through a little bit. Ian can probably talk about that a little bit more, but we do find having the one-on-one conversation, at least initially, is better than let's get the whole family in the room and let's attack dad or mom and say, you can't do this anymore. So best approach is to
Absolutely.
Also to start early.
Depends on the person.
True. And that's like the number one thing we said first.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, mean or
Right. No, and that's true. And we see it. We definitely see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's just important to talk about it. Even if they're not there yet, you know a reference, just talking about it early. If you see someone and you think like, gosh, we're closing in on that, they may have had one or two little oopsies where they hit a curb or they got a ticket for running a stop sign. Talk to them. It's better. I feel it's better to have that conversation early so that when it does come, they sort of know that it's coming. They don't feel blindsided or, like you said, they don't want to feel ganged up on or anything. If they know it's coming, if it's something that's spoken about freely and openly early enough, when they are in their right frame of mind of, yeah, I'm fine now, but potentially I may have some issues down the road. I think that's definitely going to help.
Mm-hmm. I think actually in the Hartford, one of the books, there's even like a contract you can have. So if you do have the conversation earlier, be like, let's agree. At what point do you say, I can say we're done kind of thing? So again, it's just trying to have the conversation early if possible. At the end of the day, most likely all of us are going to have to give up our keys at some point, and we'll give more strategies along the way. But you're right. It's not an easy conversation. Third parties are also, I think, where it gets really helpful outside of, like you said, the doctor.
law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
Exactly. Oh, trust me. Oh,
Yeah. But why? Why is it so important, even though it is that hard, because the person is that stubborn, in how they react to you. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's safety. So it's a difference of a life or death situation. And they might be mad as all get out, but you're making sure they don't kill themselves or somebody else. So, like we said, although it might be uncomfortable to have those conversations, older adults weigh the decisions to agree to driving less and avoid certain road conditions or stop driving. But there's also a study that does say over half of the people said they followed suggestions of others, women more than men. But it's a study. All right, so that's a little bit of like the background. So what next, right? So you've tried to have the early conversation, you've seen the warning signs, and you're not getting anywhere, right? So what can you do? So it certainly is where we feel like the driving evaluation is helpful. We're a third party. We can evaluate just because an individual reaches out. So you yourself can call and be like, well, it helps to make sure they are agreeable to come, but I want them to have a driving evaluation. You can talk about it at your doctor's office. Should they be driving? The doctor's like, I don't really know. Well, hey, we have this great resource in town. Let's get them a driving evaluation. Or you get turned into the DMV for a variety of reasons, and then you have no choice because you have 30 days to return your paperwork or your license gets canceled anyway, or suspended.
My mother would hit a car
Mhm.
with my sister in the car. I mean, at a parked it, hit the car. My sister went, you just hit that car. She backs up, she moves the car somewhere else, gets out of the car with a cane, going in KW. I didn't, it's no damage, I'm talking. We reported it to her doctor because I said, my sister, I said, you were in the car. It's not the first incident. I said, but to hit a vehicle and purposely leave the site and then act like it never happened is her judgment. I mean, she knew what she was doing.
Right.
It's fine. I don't want to deal with it. So the doctor, we called, made an appointment. She went in and told us that we had to contact the DMV. And so we didn't find out after the fact that when we kept calling the DMV, they said, no, your doctor is supposed to do that, evaluate, like you said, put in for the request of the
That's half and
concern.
half true. That's half and half true. You as an individual can actually report it
They can.
to the DMV.
Can you just summarize what she said for the streaming viewers?
Oh, yes, sure. So like having an individual who knowingly or unknowingly is making bad decisions for driving and then felt like they had to report the accident to the doctor and hope that the doctor would turn them into the DMV and get the process starting. The doctor kind of said, no, you need to do it.
Said, well, she gave the impression that we were the ones that reported, not her.
Got you.
Okay.
Right. So, and it can go both ways. Like you would hope your doctor would support you, but I don't think all of them are very familiar with the DMV process. And in their defense, it can be very confusing. And I have a slide up here in just a second that goes over, you can get it right off of online. You do have to sign it, so it's not an anonymous report, but you submit it. I had a client, their son reported him, and it starts the process. It's a slow process, but they do get paperwork in the mail, and then, well, I'm jumping ahead, but I can't go ahead.
That's okay. But
Yeah.
so whoever we spoke with at DMV did not share what we should have, because we reported it was an accident
Yeah.
and they didn't follow through. So now I understand that we could push that.
You definitely.
Anyone can report to the DMV, doctors, your average lay person, law enforcement. You know, when I worked for the police department, if we encountered an individual who we felt questionable about their ability to drive, we carried around forms with us. They were North Carolina DMV driver reevaluation examination forms. And it's basically the same thing that anyone can fill out. You fill out, you put your concerns on there, you put your name and contact information and turn it into the DMV. And then that starts their process on that end. So anyone can do it.
But she rides around with her dog in the car.
Yeah.
And I say, no, ride with the dog. And she said, but I want to get it.
Yeah. No, it's
Multiple incidents.
And it happens, well, you might not, it happens more often than people think. You know, they hit something and they keep going. A month ago, I live in the Pine Valley area on my way home, and I was behind the vehicle, and I thought instantly the person may be under the influence of something. They were driving off the road into the grass. They were driving on the sidewalk. I had my two kids in the car, and I thought, wow, this is exactly what I don't want them to see, you know, in case this person is under the influence. And all of a sudden, the person drives through a whole row of mailboxes, gets back on the road. So I called the police department, continued to follow this person, and I followed him to a dead-end cul-de-sac, and it was just a little old lady, and she got out of her car, walked around, looked at the front, looked around side to side, got back in her car, and hit her car in the garage. Of course, she didn't even realize I was behind her the whole time, and the police department came and ended up issuing her a citation. But these things, it's the exact scenario you just described. They are
Wrong
unaware.
person behind her, boy.
Well, I think anybody probably would have done the same thing. But I had this fear that they were under the influence. It didn't dawn on me at the time that it was an elderly person. You know, my neighborhood's got sidewalks everywhere. There's kids riding bikes and people walking their dogs. And it was a very dangerous situation, but that was one out of multiple incidents that probably happened that day in Wilmington. So if you know your loved one is involved in something like that, please do something, call the DMV, call us, call whomever.
Dismantle the battery on the car,
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep, we're done.
I like it.
Yep.
whatever we got to do.
So a little bit like we already kind of talked about, the DMV, they have a purpose, but sometimes it doesn't always work out to your benefit, and they don't always see what you're looking. But they're supposed to be evaluating the driving fitness of an individual that has a medical condition. And if they feel like that medical condition has affected, now this is a person who's coming in to renew their license, let's say. And if they feel, one, they have to report the medical issue. And if they feel like that this could be unfit to drive, that's when they require the comprehensive evaluation, either just with the doctor's paperwork or including the OT eval. So these are some medical conditions that would kind of trigger needing to do the evaluation through the DMV. But
I didn't see just pure meanness up there.
meanness. Oh, wait, I should have.
That was on the page with information you had to cut out.
They're sticking together.
I love them.
So this is kind of what you already brought up. So it's who can request a DMV, that the DMV does a medical evaluation or reports them to the medical unit. So it can be the medical provider. It could be law enforcement. You could have a rep, like you said, and that's an automatic, I guess they write the ticket for it, how that works.
Certain police departments are different. Wilmington Police Department's policy, at least when I was employed there, is if there is a traffic crash, excuse me, and they are able to determine fault, whoever the at-fault party is has to receive a citation. So the way the North Carolina 349 form works, which is the official exchange of information or crash report, vehicle number 1 is supposed to be listed as at fault. But to make it even more solidified of who is at fault, the police department is requiring whichever responding officer shows up to take that crash report to issue a citation. And there's almost always evidence to show who is at fault. Very rarely, but occasionally, an officer is unable to determine fault. But 9 out of 10 times it will. And then there's a little check mark on there that will ask if there was any suspected or confirmed medical conditions happening. So it's relatively easy for them to pinpoint that.
Involuntary commitment orders, that's getting way deeper. Or an individual. So if you have a concern, you would fill out the request for medical evaluation form. This is what it looks like. So you can see this, this is the website right here. I'm happy to share that. You could even just go North Carolina DMV and type in request for driver reexamination. So on the form, this can be where a healthcare professional is reporting them or an individual. So you do have to give your name, but when the individual gets the paperwork from the DMV, it does not show who reported them. They have to call, ask, dig a little deeper to get that information. But yeah, so you report what your concern is and send that in. And if they then take it further from there, then the next step is that they'll receive a packet in the mail from the DMV that basically says, this packet needs to be signed off by your medical provider and return it to us pretty much in 30 days, or else your license will get canceled or suspended. You can get extensions if need be, but the paperwork, this is kind of like the main form. The doctor, so you would take, the individual has to have, the whereabouts to be like, okay, I'm going to take this to my doctor, because we see a lot of people, they didn't quite get that they needed to take it to their doctor. Maybe you don't help her if she doesn't realize she needs to take it to the doctor. There's kind of things in that. Because if it's not turned in within 30 days, they will get another piece of paper in the mail that says hasn't been turned in. So therefore your license is suspended. But you do have to wait the 30 days each time. So that can be tough. But on here, for the most part, it's your primary care provider, and they're going to look at vision is like the two main areas. If there's any main concerns, if somebody has other medical concerns going on, they will ask it's a long packet, so other doctors may have to fill out the form too. But so your doctor at this point can be like, oh my gosh, they're great, they're fine, I think they can drive, check, 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 they're good to go. So that's on the doctor. Or the doctor can say, you know what, I really don't have enough evidence. And number 7, it says, do you recommend an occupational therapy evaluation? And they say, hey, look, go do this evaluation. If you can drive, prove it to the test. The test tells the truth. You know, the test is good. The test is very
Absolutely.
good. So that's the next step. And that also is taking it off of the doctor, and it's taking off of the family member, and it's putting it off the test to really. So that gets in, we're just going to talk a little bit about how our evaluation goes. If anyone needs to go through the process, but it's a 2-step evaluation. So the first part comes to our clinic. And actually I should say, just for the Wilmington area, there's only 2 OTs in the area that do the driving evaluations. So our clinic, and then there's one other clinic that's actually based out of Greensboro. But they have a satellite office here. They have an adaptive car. So if you for any reason need adaptations to your car, they're able to do that. For our program, we don't have an adaptive car. So that kind of helps you make that decision as well. But okay, so you come in for the clinical evaluation, and then we also have part 2, which is on the road. It's broken up. So with our evaluation, it takes about an hour and a half. It's very thorough. We're going through your medical history. We're looking at your vision, your strength, your coordination, your reaction time, sensation, cognition, do a bit of a functional task. Our program was built on a lot of evidence-based research, and each one of our tests has a correlation to your risk for crash. So, you know, there's a lot of people be like, I'm doing this paper and pencil test. What does this mean about how I drive a car? Well, you know, if you can't go from 1 to A to 2 to B and you switch your attention back and forth, how are you going to drive a car and look at the light and look at Ian and all the other things? So, yeah, so the tests are really good. And we don't make our decision just based off of one test. We look at them all. We look at the whole big picture. So at the end of this test, we're going to say, hey, maybe, especially for vision, if there's concerns, because ours is just a screen for vision, we might say you should really go to your eye doctor and, you know, get a more comprehensive test on your vision. Or we can already say, hey, you know, maybe there's a few red flags, but we're comfortable putting you on the road to schedule that second visit with Ian. Or already based on the testing, we can say there's enough red flags that it's our recommendation that you stop driving. Then they go to Ian, if they go to Ian. So not everybody goes to Ian, but.
Yes, only the special. So the driving route, it's actually fantastic. You know, we've used the same route every single time. We've been using it from the beginning. It takes about an hour depending on traffic. We do try to not do this in peak traffic times. You know, so no lunchtime driving, no dinner time driving. We just try to pick a normal morning session. Obviously, you're in a car with a licensed driving instructor. I do have a brake on my side. They have, how many critical errors do we have? 2, grabbing the wheel and pushing the brakes. Mm-hmm. So if one of us, I think I'm the only one that's doing them. Mm-hmm. So if I have to grab the steering wheel, perform any type of evasive maneuver to keep us from crashing, or if I have to push the brake pedal, that's an automatic failure. So those are considered critical errors. Whereas if I weren't there to do that, we would either be involved in a collision, rear end collision, side swipe, head on, and I have been in almost every situation you can think of. I've been in it with some of these folks. Now, some of them are very good. They're excellent drivers. Some at the end, we're on the fence. And a lot of times I'll call Noah, Jackie, somebody just to talk it out and say, well, maybe let's reevaluate in 6 months, depending on what their condition is. If it's a condition that it improves over time, right now, maybe not. But let's try again in 6 months. Or they're doing fine. I think they're good in familiar areas, easy traffic times. Then we can place certain restrictions or recommend restrictions on them where they only drive to familiar places, not on the highway, not during peak traffic times, things of that nature. But yeah, and again, if they do well with me, it's not, oh, yep, guaranteed you pass. We sit down, we talk about it, and we look at the big picture and figure out, yeah, they're either a high risk or we think they can continue to drive.
Any questions on that? Thinking it through.
If you do, just holler,
Yeah,
spit it out, interrupt, whatever, I'm good.
What's the route so I can prepare for it?
Well, I'm glad you said that because I didn't really get into it. We give multi-directional instructions. So if you and I were going out to dinner in an area in which you weren't familiar with, I may wait till the last minute and say, okay, hey, let's go ahead and turn right here on College Road. But this one, we may tell them, hey, at the second traffic light, I want you to make a right turn on the College Road. And you give them that enough time so that they can fully understand it, comprehend it, but then they also have to remember it.
Right.
And then I'm sorry?
Reaction.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then they have to remember it, and then they have to implement the instructions you gave them. And some of them are, hey, after we turn left at the traffic light, prepare yourself to make a right-hand turn onto Lake Avenue. So you're not just thinking about the left-hand turn, but you're turning left into a road that has 3 separate lanes. And we don't want to be in the far left lane. Now, we're not telling them all of this. We're just giving them enough instruction so that the average person should understand, after I make this left-hand turn, I need to position myself to take a right at the next light. So you and I would both know if it's a multi-lane left-hand turn, I'm going to want to be in the outside lane so that after I make the turn, I'm only 1 lane away from being able to turn right off of that roadway. So we try to give them a little bit more in-depth instruction, and then we're watching how or if they comprehend what we're telling them to do. And that way, kind of tell you what happens if they're going to be in a normal, driving scenario in a high stress situation.
I think on top of that too is like, if they miss it, how do they react to missing that turn or misunderstanding maybe the instructions they might say, or they might make excuses, but we are able to kind of follow their problem solving.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof.
I'm glad you brought that up. We had someone who was supposed to be turning left at College and Oleander. The route was almost over. We were on our way back to the office. Okay, at the second traffic light, let's turn left on Oleander. And once it was too late, they realized, oh gosh, this is Oleander. Instead of just continuing through and potentially finding another route back, they stopped, put their car halfway in the turn lane, halfway in the fast lane on College Road, and created an unbelievably dangerous situation. And I'm not going to use the term froze, but almost froze in uncertainty of what do I do. If you and I miss a turn, it's no big deal. Just, what you say, go to the next light? You're 100% correct.
Right.
Go to the next light. It doesn't matter where you are in this town, unless you're on one of the 3 dead end roads. If you miss a turn, just keep going. There's another one in 25 feet.
They're probably nervous.
Yeah,
Right. And we talked through that, and he's a pretty laughable, easygoing guy. So we try to make people comfortable, and we say we understand the nerves, and we give credit for the nerves,
but you need to. Most people would know, hey, if I'm sticking out halfway in the turn lane, half in the straight lane, it's College and Oleander at noon on a Friday. This is not where I want to be.
Yeah.
This is dangerous. Yes, ma'am.
Do you get a lot of people that are new to the area, or are these people that's familiar with Wilmington or been here a while?
I think it's a good
it's
mix.
a good mix. Yeah.
Yeah, and which
We
is
give them that benefit of the doubt too.
absolutely.
Right.
Will you repeat the question?
Do we get people that are new to the area to doing our driving evaluation, or people that are from the area?
Yes. And I think it's a good mix of both. But that's kind of one of the reasons why we don't go out, 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. We don't want to completely overwhelm them. We do want to give them the time and the space they need. But really, whether you know the area or not, I think the route is so well put together, and it's all the directions are given in advance with more than enough time. So I think my personal opinion is it's irrelevant where you're from. You could take,
Turn left now.
yeah, we don't do that, which is good. So you could move here from Los Angeles tomorrow and get in the car with me and do the on-road assessment. And I think it would be just fine how we've laid it out and when we decide to give the directions.
The reason I asked, I had a lady that moved from like Michigan, and she moved out to Leland, and she said they never had the roundabouts. So she would always get confused when she did the roundabout.
Sure.
There's a local lady that's in her 80s, lived in Wilmington all her life, less than 5 minutes from the airport, and she had to go pick up her sister, and she got lost because they opened the Martin Luther King Bridge. And she was much younger then, but she's like, oh, it threw me in a loop, and I've been here, but just that one street that's really quicker to get there versus Market Street that a lot of people avoid.
Right.
That's why I was asking, what are the people you see or what,
I think it's a good mix.
Yeah. And I think that's where the cognitive testing is really helpful too, just to see. And we don't only do paper and pencil tests. We also have you make scrambled eggs in our kitchen. So did you remember to turn the stove on and off? Did you remember how to follow the directions you pick what you're going to make? How does that play out? Did you remember what you were going to make? Did you pick the selections you were going to? So if you can't make a scrambled egg, do we really think we're going to correlate to being able to, be a
I want to ask you about mobility. Like my mother has difficulty getting in and out of her vehicle, and can't get in anybody else's vehicle. I mean, literally is, and she's not a small woman. Okay. So that's my concern when she goes out on her own. She goes to Sam's, she goes to Walmart. That's her norm. She does her thing. And her fall rest, I mean, she has to have a walker or a cane, but when she goes shopping, she's looking for where's the basket? Where can I grab a basket? And we're like, what if you fall out in the parking lot? Who's going to pick you up? You're not in, but I'm fine. That's her main thing. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So say she comes for the test, because I'm going to tell you, we're going to be working towards, because I'm with you. I want to give her the opportunity to make wise choices. She doesn't have dementia. She's just mean. I mean, real.
That's a southern term. Don't take it out of
She's
context.
contagious. She's going to do what she wants to do regardless of what the doctor or anybody says, okay? So if she came for the test and you're using your car, she's already going to say, well, why can't I use my car? What's going on? So already she's going to be doing a fight.
Not equipped with a passenger brake and hasn't been inspected by the state of North
That's
Carolina.
So say she couldn't even if she tried to even get in the car, and she could, because you're not going to touch her.
No.
She's got to get in there on her own.
That's
And
right.
she's not able to get in her own. Pretty much she's already filled the test, right?
If she's unable to complete it,
Yeah.
then you have to take that into consideration. But we've had, stroke patients who are completely paralyzed on one side of their body, and they successfully completed it. So that's why we do take everything on a case-by-case basis, and we look at the entire big picture. I have not been tasked with a patient who just simply cannot get in the car or will not get in the car. Haven't had that happen, but I assume we would absolutely just look at every angle of it and do the best we can. Yes, ma'am.
Have you dealt with clients with neuropathy?
Yes. Yeah. So, and it's one area, right? So if you can't feel that your foot's on the gas or the brake, I mean, it's a red flag, certainly. But do you have an awareness of it, right? So it's your level of awareness of where that is. Just having neuropathy isn't enough, but
Well,
It's
I've
definitely
had
a
clients,
concern.
he had neuropathy in his hand and feet, and he was still driving. And what happened throughout Wilmington, certain time of the year, they changed turning lanes and different things around school zones, and then they added a stop sign or no right turn at areas that was high accident prone. And so he wasn't used to those waiting to the light turn green, so he would run them. And his wife contacted me, and she said, now I've got to ask you a question. I trust you. And so then she told me, she said, you know, my husband was driving and he ran the red light and it had the sun. I said, well, did he not see? And he's have 20/20 vision.
Mhm.
He's one of a few older guys that don't have to wear glasses, don't have to wear reading glasses. He's really good. And she said, you know, I'm concerned because he got neuropathy in both hands and both feet, but he's still driving. And then he told her, when I talked to him, I said, well, let me talk to him. He said, I don't have feeling. And I was like, okay, were you aware that you were? He said, I'm used to going there, making that right turn if nothing. I said, but you didn't see the sun? And so I told her, I said, well, just take the keys.
Yeah.
So he said, oh, she took my license. I said, no, the keys was hers anyway. She just took them, but you still got your license. And I told her, I said, you're endangering yourself because he still wants to not give up his manhood of driving and in control. And so eventually she did. And I mean, I talked to him like 6 months before he kind of calmed down about it, but he still was saying every month and every week, you know, she took my license. I said, no, she took her keys, you know.
Right.
And I was concerned how somebody like that could drive with that right foot and neither one of them. And I'm beginning to hear a lot of people with neuropathy.
Yeah.
You know, and they still are trying to drive. Because one lady's like, I'm driving around the block, and she's much younger. She's in her mid-60s, and she had a stroke and had some major issues. And now she's got her hands swelled up like 3 of mine, and she was still driving. And she said, well, I want to start back driving. And I was like, well, do you think it's safe when I'm going around the block? I'm like, well, do you realize your traffic has increased, you know, and her kids are away. And I was like, can I get one of them phone number? But she still haven't given it to me. So, you know, it's just dangerous to me, you know.
It is. And I mean, you're right. The mobility piece, the sensation, they're all areas that we look at with the test. And we try to educate, you know, our clients as they're going through too and explain why those are areas of concern. But you know, like you said, I always took this right. We had a lady who was like, the GPS told me to take her right, so I took her right. Well, a 18-wheeler was coming and hit her. Well, did you not think you needed to look? You know, so they think like, oh, the car told me I could do it. Well, you know, we hear a lot of them saying, oh, I just drive on cruise control all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
I would have to share my story. I know some people have heard it that a year ago, I'm driving down College Road, heading to CVS, and Silver Lake Baptist Church was having their annual car show with a bouncy house right in the front. And the senior driver missed his turn. And so the church people, you know, that saw him just started backing out into, I hit him going 45. I never lost consciousness, but I felt like I was airborne. I remember feeling airborne and my car swung. Of course, when I hit him, it threw him into the front of the church, just missed the bouncy house with the kids. I spun around and hit another car coming down because I was in the right lane, the left lane. I hit them, and then they just missed going into oncoming traffic. The man didn't make. I mean, he didn't make it. All right, but just that, I use that as an excuse for my mother, and it doesn't register. And I have my car, I have the wreck picture, I show this happened by somebody just making just one mistake. And they said the church people that were there witness said it was that fast. He just pulled in, I'm missing, he's about to hit the ditch. So he puts it in back, and they watched him just that fast back up. And
I think you need the DMV's help.
Yes, absolutely.
You just for her. I would, because it takes it off of you.
Yeah.
She's not, you know, you're trying all the things, and you know,
And it's official and legal, and
right.
you know, any other benefit.
my name will be right there saying, look, Mom, I signed it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. Well, I guess just it's all really helpful to just have the conversation. Actually,
This helps.
Yeah. For our program, we do require an order from the physician, because we wouldn't want someone to come to us and be like, "Hey, I'm going to do an eval," and then we tell them they shouldn't be driving, and then they're like, "Well, we're just not going to tell my doctor that." So we don't play that game. We make sure the doctor gets a copy of our order, Sometimes we're getting the referral from neurologists, so we'll make sure that the referring provider and the primary care doctor get a copy of our evaluation. And all participants of our program have to sign a consent form that says if we deem it necessary, we can report to the DMV. We don't report all of our cases there, but if we think that somebody's not going to follow our recommendation, then it is our duty to report that to the DMV. And if you're not going to sign that paperwork, then we won't do the evaluation. So we do stress that.
So she would have to sign that she.
And we haven't had, I don't think we've had anybody yet who didn't sign it. So.
Do you communicate with like a family member if they have it once they, what your findings are?
Yeah, so we have an intake form that basically they fill out for us that we say, who do you want to have a copy of these results? But also you have to come with another licensed driver to our evaluation. So you can't come by yourself, because if we did say, hey, you're not safe to drive, we can't let you then go get in a car and drive off.
You have say if you have top attorney, would that override them not signing? You're saying you're requesting them to have that signed?
I mean, they still have to, for the power of attorney to sign the paperwork.
Right.
We haven't had the scenario really happen yet, but I think they really need to be an active participant in the evaluation, or you're really not going to.
Because if they're going to refuse to sign the paperwork like that, they probably aren't going to come to begin with. Unless.
When you're to that age in your life and you know that, hey, this is starting to get questionable.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to hurt somebody. So
Yeah.
99.9% of people would get on
Right.
board.
And they
But
do.
not everybody.
Right.
Even if it's
That's my
begrudgingly,
standpoint.
they do.
Or you take that evidence, right, and you go back to the doctor and you say, hey, I can fill out this form, or you can fill out this form, and you could help make this process a whole lot easier, because here's X, Y, and Z that has happened. This is what we have tried to do.
We're recording everything.
I'm kind of surprised that you don't get more resistance than people not signing. Do they think that they're fine and they're gonna pass?
Yeah. I will say we get more resistance at the end of the evaluation. We try to have them sign off on what our recommendation is. And we've definitely had some that be like, okay, I'm out the door.
Yeah.
But many more have actually surprised me, that they're like, you know what, this isn't what I would have wanted to happen,
But I get
but
it.
I hear what you're saying. Now, they don't always follow that necessarily out the door, but there's a part of them that's like, you know what, I know it too.
Yeah, this is someone else's kids, their grandkids.
Yeah.
You put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to be responsible for hurting
That's right.
Yeah.
someone else's kids.
For sure.
Do you just do New Hanover County?
Our office is in New Hanover County, so you can come to us from a separate county, but our evaluation, we're off of Wrightsville Avenue. Yes, so they come to us. Most of our clients have cognitive changes, dementia, Parkinson's, some stroke. Again, like we said, if we think someone would benefit from adaptive equipment, we would refer them to a different program that could meet their needs a little bit better. So no matter if you pass or fail, we try to present everybody with education of there's going to come a day where you're going to need to stop driving. So we try to give some information to everyone who comes to the program, other options. And like I said, we typically don't report to the DMV, but if we need to, we will. We had a client not too long ago who we recommended not driving, and she didn't love it, but she said, okay. And then she forgot what we said, which is also very common. Well, they didn't say that. I don't remember that. So we do try to print out a piece of paper that goes home with them. But when it's all said and done, she was still trying to consider to get in her car. So then we did need to send our report. And it was 5 months later. We were contacted by someone who was working with her and said, this is still not working. And so we reported, sent our report. And then we contacted the doctor and we said, hey, look, this is what we recommended. We sent you the report. We would like you to fill out the paperwork and also submit it to the DMV. So can't say they all listen to us, but so far we've had really good communication with the providers that we've worked with. So like I said, so our program, we don't take insurance. It is private pay. For some people, if the financial means is a problem, ECU does take insurance for the occupational therapy portion. The on the road is private pay for all of them. Duke also has a program. They don't file insurance, but their pricing is a little bit different. And then driver rehabilitation services, that's the other program that has the adaptive car. And that car will come to your house to do the program. That's a little more expensive too, because there's a lot more that goes into it, but those are good options. ECU and Duke tend to schedule pretty far out. I think right now they're scheduling to November or December before you can get in.
What's the cost now?
So for our evaluation, it's $400 for the occupational therapy evaluation and $150 for the on the road. So easier said than done, but these are kind of like 3 things to remember if you are trying to help somebody stop driving. So remove the access. We talked about it. So whether you have to take away the keys, take away the car. If you can't do that, some people are disconnecting the battery. Well, somebody might call AAA. So you have to really kind of be thinking through the process of how can you make sure you're eliminating the
We
access.
have a client right now that the family disconnected the battery. She got a cab and went and bought a new car.
Which that,
Yeah, that's common. We hear that story.
Yeah.
Sounds like me. You would do it too.
I mean, my very first client did that,
Yeah.
or threatened to do that. But I think even with removing access, other than the client who says, well, I'm just going to buy a new car, right?
And she says the car in the driveway, well, that's not my car anyway. I don't know why it's not working, and I don't even know why it's in my driveway.
Well, and that does happen. It happened my very first one many years ago in Greenville. You know, we told the woman it was in her best interest to not drive anymore. She adamantly disagreed. Her son informed her that they were going to take the car, and she said, well, that's fine. I'll go buy a new one. They said, well, Mom, we're going to take that too. And she said, that's okay. I'm going to go by the dealership. You know, she had lots of financial means to do so. So I haven't heard if she actually bought a car dealership or not. But some clients will do that. But I think, I personally feel if you can focus on number 2, right? Removing the access, yes, that's the first part. That's the hard part. But if you can implement that replacement and they have no need for their car, it's a win, right? You might not have to worry about any backlash if you can replace it and the needs are met and it's not a big deal. Some people obviously stand on principle. They don't want their car taken. They don't want their keys taken, and that's what it's going to be. But if you make it so it becomes a non-issue for them, which is easier said than done.
I'm sending the driver
Yeah.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays now.
Right.
Maybe it's a
Yeah.
chance to incorporate
We
other
agree.
family
We've done
members
that.
as well. You know, other church members.
Right.
Hey, why don't you ride with, you know, whomever to church? Or we'll
Nobody's
take you to
coming.
the
None
store.
of my siblings, she's not allowed to drive when we're there. We
You want to
drive.
be with it.
Good.
And every once in a while, I'll test her driving. I'll say, I'll let you drive. And she said, you make me nervous. I can't drive because you're in the car with, you know. I said, move over and I'll drive.
That's part of it.
But I agree. I mean, especially as the occupational therapist, replacing the need is anticipating it, having that routine is so important. So if you can have, you know, Sundays, your grandchild comes over every Sunday and she's going to take you wherever you need to go, and it becomes more fun, not like a punishment in some way. But replacing that and then remembering the fun, because it's really important too. It's not just about going to the doctor, going to the grocery store, going to whatever you have to get, but also go for ice cream and go be with family and make them still remember why they want to get out of their house and enjoy life, because part of their independence has been taken away. So it's an important piece of the puzzle.
Very important piece of the puzzle.
This is another resource that's helpful. Plan for the Road Ahead is a great website to work on how to anticipate the needs. Like for some people, they're financially driven. Well, Mom, if we sold the car, we didn't have to pay for the insurance, we didn't have to pay for the gas, X, Y, and Z. Look at how much money we can save. So there's different things. And this helps you also just kind of prepare, understand what that routine is. So that's a good one.
Very good.
And then the Hartford, they put out some really great information to help people with the conversations. We have those in the back that I think.
I'm gonna get a bunch so I can lay them around our house.
There you go.
Son of a bitch.
I don't know. They keep coming in the mail. And just some other local alternative transportation options. Senior Resource Center offers non-emergency medical transportation for seniors. I think it's 2 a month or so. You can call them. I know we have an option, a local option right here. Golden Point
Transit.
yeah, which is awesome. Awesome. Wave Transit is also an option to call. GoGo Grandparent, it's like it's Uber, but it's Uber for the caregiver, care receiver sort of situation. I will be honest, we've never used it personally, but we know that it's an option. So that's like you call, so you don't need a smartphone to have the app to do it. But it allows both Uber and Lyft have drivers that have been through a little more training to work with older adults, and the caregiver, family member, whomever it is, also gets to find out, hey, they got picked up, they got dropped off. But this is still dependent on if drivers are available in the area. So it's not always an option, but something to keep in mind. Ride sharing, ride with your friends. Your friend's going to pick you up. You're going to go to church, and then you're going to get a few things done. So also, I know easier said than done, but it's an option. Yeah.
Wow, good on that one.
Cape Fear Council of Government, Area Agency on Aging. They hear a lot of local resources and things happening in the community. So they're also a great connection.
I work for Elder House, and we're constantly getting calls for not just the service, but, resources.
Yeah.
So I like the list, like I could actually see where I could make a card, with what you just provided, and just, be able to email that, or,
Yeah,
so I appreciate
absolutely.
resources.
And knowing we would love to add you on our recommendation list too. Absolutely. So that's us.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions?
I want your take on something.
Okay.
All right. So she went out and bought a car. My brother made a comment to my mother that, her car was old and, getting older. And so he said, she took that and went and got her a brand new car. Same thing. Went in on a Saturday. And they sold her the dealership. She was stuck in the rain, didn't know how to cut her windshield wipers on. She got stuck and didn't know how to cut the car back on because it was electronic key. We got, went to that first month was a nightmare. That's when she hit somebody with her brand new car because she didn't know. So dealerships. I am on a mission to hold them somewhat accountable of selling vehicles. To seniors that should have some type of training, or if they don't understand their car, they should sell them a car. What is your take on that?
Yes, and yes.
Yeah, absolutely. They're supposed to have, they call themselves, from what I gather, product specialists. And you can choose to opt out of having them walk you through how to start the car, roll the windows down. You could say, no, I'm good. I've got one of my own at home. I just wanted another one. But they offer that service to you, and there's nothing wrong with, if your mother still has issues with that car, I don't think there's anything wrong. If she bought a new Honda from the Honda dealership, I would take her up there with the Honda and say, hey, we just purchased this car a month ago, but she didn't get the rundown of how to work everything. Could you please have someone come assist her and walk her through how to do that? That's how I would approach that situation. But as
Not
far as,
after the accident, you would do it right away.
well, yeah, that's what I would definitely do, is I wouldn't probably leave the dealership until I had that.
I feel like, didn't we hear from maybe a past talk when someone from AARP was here?
Yeah.
Sharing that it's an initiative that they're trying to push to have dealerships a little more accountable for who they sell the car to, and the education and
just even the new stuff now.
The new-
Like,
yeah,
I
I
just got a new car.
right.
And she's like, Julie, I don't even know what this means or how to do
Yeah.
this. I have to make an appointment to go back so they can teach me how to use this car.
I mean,
And
I
I
pretty
thought,
much
wow,
don't
we
drive my
should've-
brand new car. I drive my old beater because it just is easy and it doesn't have all the buttons and gadgets and stuff my brand new one does. And sits in my driveway.
I was younger. I remember my grandfather, he got a new car. He was like, we don't turn the radio on. We don't do anything because I don't know how to use any of it.
Yeah.
We're just going to drive. That's it. So you had to like drive in silence. But
What about those cars that drive themselves?
That's right.
I know,
There's a new
right?
Tesla.
And conversations too of even like you had mentioned, the roads change. Like there's roundabouts now that didn't used to be there. So can do some driving lessons.
Yeah, that is a great option. You can sign up and call Joe's driving school where I work and ask if someone, has some availability to just do driving lessons. But I will say, if you're on the fence and you want to figure out if they are, able to drive, I would probably go through this process first. And I've done their whole process. I've done their whole evaluation start to finish. I had probably been doing my driving evaluation several years before I went through the entire thing. And it was an eye opener for me. And I should have done it from day one. But now that I've done it, you can totally see the correlation between everything that's been talked about, everything that they do, and everything that we do.
And you go renew your license. Is there a time when you have to pass an eye test to be able to renew your license? I thought there was, right?
There is.
Mhm.
Don't ask me when it
When
is,
yeah,
but
when
there
I
is.
know my
The
father was
vision
always
test,
worried about
they-
that. Oh, that's what I test.
Once you turn 40, I think you have to do it again.
I think the renewal.
But then I think that's when it starts, I think, is when you turn.
We had a lady, 90 years old. She went to get her license. Prior to that, she got lost. She was in a very rural area, just going from her house to the stop sign, going straight down to the grocery store. And she got lost, and she went and got her license, and they gave her 8 more years.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And she said all she did was walk in and tell them she wanted to renew her license.
And
And then there's
that's
people
where I
that-
said it's a little
People are
tricky.
getting their license renewed through the mail, so they're not doing no eye tests.
Well, at certain
If you do it
ages,
online.
you do have to go in, and you do have to do that in person. You have to take the eye exam.
Right.
You even have to take a signs test again.
Right.
Mhm.
There is a point somewhere in our aging process that we do have to do these things again.
And even
But
like the
it's-
online renewal, you can't do it 2 times in a row. Because I know I did it my last time, and for the next one, it was like you
Okay,
have
so
to go
then
in
you have
person.
to
So
do it.
even for
maybe
younger.
5 or 8 years.
So I just wanted to share, this is a situation that my family had to address. My father bought a car, he had a girlfriend, and he always liked a certain vehicle. So when he bought this car, we were like, no, you didn't buy it for you, Dad, you bought it for her. And he stopped driving, so she started driving the car. My brother came to me and said, Chu, I went and just talked to the insurance agent. Dad's got $1 million policy. If she's driving the car and something happens, right, you could put it under the policy. But anything over $1 million, they could go after my dad and everything that my dad owned. So in that situation, right, we were thankful that Dad had a companion, and that she was able to be with him 24/7. And they would go to dinner, they'd go get ice cream, whatever, little drives. Well, she got to where she was getting sketchy in her driving. And so my brother, initiated this and looked into it. And we had to have a conversation with my dad. She's got to get her own stuff. Give her the car, Dad. Just give her the car, but she's got to go get her own insurance. Because right now, the way this setup works, you could lose everything if anything happened.
And I always personally recommend, just from an insurance standpoint, I'm not an insurance salesman, nothing like that, umbrella policies. I think they're your best friend. You do have to, you're required to carry higher limits, generally speaking. But to get an umbrella policy, I think when I got mine, it was $10 more a month on my premium, just to have that. And my wife was involved, not to get too sidetracked, in a bad car crash 2 years ago. It was her fault. She had a brand spanking new car, first brand new car her family had ever had. She had about 2 months. She unfortunately turned left to get into our neighborhood, and she ended up pulling out in front of Ford F-150 traveling at about 50 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Hit her so hard, she spun the car and then flipped 3 times, landed on top of another vehicle, bounced off of hers, and my wife broke her back, you know.
Oh my
But the
God.
kind of back break where she's fine, she walked it off, you know, no surgery or anything like that. But instantly,
Yeah.
she's,
that's the
she's
grace
a
of
tough
God.
woman. But instantly after the crash settled down and I got there and I realized she had probably totaled 4 cars at once, all very nice cars. I started thinking, ooh, insurance. This is not going to be good because I'm looking just at my best guess. She totaled 150, maybe $200,000 worth of cars in one fell swoop. And if you have the North Carolina bare minimums, which is 30, 60, and 25, anything over 60,000, you can be held liable for. I'm thankful I had $1 million umbrella policy because I know I had nothing to worry about. But that's another thing, you know, family members of aging drivers, if you think they're at risk, check out their insurance policy. Maybe call their insurance agency. Find out what the coverage is. How can you better protect yourself if you have
My
someone?
sister's driving my mother's car most of the time, like going to the doctors, because she can get her in and out of that car.
Yeah, and she'll be covered under that vehicle's
Under my,
insurance.
okay, so my sister doesn't need to worry about driving my mother's car.
Our insurance follows the car.
And then just on another point of liability with, if you knowingly, if you have a family member that has dementia and you know they shouldn't be driving a car and they get in an accident, they can turn around and hold you liable that you allowed somebody who is not able to make the right decision to drive a car. So, I mean, it's also, that liability's on you as well.
Protect yourself, your loved ones.
Well, that's a somber way to end it.
Protect yourself and your loved
Protect
ones.
yourself. There we go. That's
No, that's not somber. We're here. We're here to protect our
Any
loved
other
ones.
questions? Thank y'all for
Yes,
having
thank
us
you,
here
guys.
today.
Thank you very much. Thank
Any more positive last words before you?
I know.
We're
Thank
on
you for
the
having
flight
us.
station.
We're
So
very
don't
sorry.
follow me. We'll never talk about airspace.
That's going to go over some of the paperwork on your table. If you are not on our email list, if you're not getting the invitations for all the programs, you fill out this very small one and hand it to any of us with the green ACAP shirts. If you have a chance to fill out this ACAP program feedback, ACAP is sending an email with a survey as well. So if you fill this out, you can just ignore that email when it comes to you. And then the last flyer is our next program will be September 10th. And it is What is PACE? And PACE stands for Program of All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. Linda is the PACE program at Elder House. And so you can join us for that and take an extra flyer and share it with a friend as well. And on the back table, they talked about the flyers that are back there. So there's one that's on the driving fitness program itself, one on Assistance for Life, which is the care management services program that both Noah and Nikki work with. And then if you want to wallpaper your back room with these driving brochures, they're back there also. These are both put out by Hartford. And so if you're watching this online or recorded, you can go to hartford.com/resources. And there's a link for Mature Market Excellence you can click on and find other resources in addition to these. And then there's also a link for the guidebooks. So that's a great site to go to also. So I think that is everything. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to Ian and Noah for sharing their information. And if you have further questions, their information is on that table and feel free to ask them. Thank you.
These Toastmasters?
It is.